Hello everyone, Coach Dave here, and this is the final onboard story of 2019. It's the highlights of my season from as many onboards as I could get from each race, and we're going to kick it off here in MUGELLO 12 Hour, the first race of my season. I wasn't meant to be here, but at the last minute Rinaldi Racing gave me the call, which was really cool because I got time to prepare for the Blancpain Endurance Series, which was my primary focus for the season. Here I am chasing my teammate Daniel Calvitz. He's in the other 48 GT3 in front of me. We're both in Wochenspiegel Team Bonschau colours, and basically cutting our way through the crazy traffic in this race. It felt like we were on a highway amongst slower cars. Almost every lap we're overtaking at least 2 to 3 cars while chasing each other down. Racing into the sunset. This was an incredibly satisfying session for me, or stint rather. However, unfortunately the race itself didn't turn out as planned, as our car caught fire after a pit stop the following day, which was not ideal, but I got to get my driving time in, and in both stints I felt really comfortable and competitive, and after a long off season it was just really satisfying to be back in a racing car and proving that all the work that I was doing behind the scenes at the gym and on the simulator were actually working, as I proved to be one of the faster drivers in the Ferrari over this weekend. Overall though, I wouldn't say the Creventic series was our strongest showing, but it was very nice for me to add another group of races to my calendar, as my target for the season was to do at least 20 races, and in the end I managed to do 21. So we finished the lap here, again in the slipstream of the slow cars, and then tucking back in with Calvitz to complete a lap. Shortly after this though, we jumped to MONZA, the 3-hour race. It was in the rain, part of the Blancpain GT series, and this is going to be a relatively short clip. We really struggled for pace here, just in general with all the Ferraris, and here I chose this clip because I was chasing down basically what is the factory entered Ferrari, which has Davide Rigon, Miguel Molina and Mikhail Alyoshin, who is from Russia, and I managed to catch up to them and eventually hunt them down heading out into the second chicane. In general, all the Ferraris are very good under braking in the wet, but we struggled with the front end and suffered from understeer, which resulted in horrible snap oversteer when you got on the power if you managed to get the traction. But we were both in the same boat, as so to speak, and managed to get the move done down into Lesmo 2. This was another race which didn't work out too well for us because we had a mix-up in the second pit stop with tires due to miscommunication. My helmet radio was really bad, and we ended up losing a lap. And basically this was a race to forget, and not how we wanted to start the Blancpain Endurance season, but that's how racing goes. We had a relatively quick car, but just, I suppose, not the full package at that point. And then we jump back to the 24-hour series, and here we are at the Spa 12 Hour. Going to be another short clip. This is my favorite move of the race. I was hunting one of the leaders down. We were actually a lap behind, and this was part 2 of the event. In the 24-hour series they split up the race into 2 parts, and here was the second part. I did the start, and I was just hunting down the overall leaders, and I managed to get a move done around the outside going into the final chicane on, I think, well, this was the leading Porsche, and yeah, they had a lot of pace, but I was on fire in this morning stint, and really satisfying. He tries to go around the outside and I squeeze him into the back marker there so I can maintain the inside line for the hairpin, and managed to pull off the move. So this is one of my favorite tracks to drive on, but the next track is probably the scariest one that I've ever driven on, and this was my debut in the Nordschleife races, the VLN series. I was attempting to get my permit for this race, and man oh man, here we are on lap 1, racing down the Dottingerhöhe in spray from everywhere. I was aquaplaning like crazy, and the following lap, during this aquaplaning sequence, I actually tried to pop out to the left to get a move done, and realized that I couldn't see anything. Went back into the spray, and as I did that we passed a massive accident on the left. So almost the following lap from here could have been a messy one. But I must say that this is probably the first time that I was uncomfortable in a racing car, and for the eagle-eyed viewers, you can see the seat was moving quite a lot in this car. It just felt really insecure. Combine that with having never done a dry lap around here and only been doing wet laps, this track is quite something. I'm yet to get my permit to race GT3 cars around the Nordschleife because of administration issues, but hopefully this year, or 2020, I'll be able to pull it off. After the Nordschleife, I headed back to the UK and competed in the first round of the the GT World Challenge Europe, which is the sprint series in the SRO events. And here I'm going, we're in the Pro-Am class, and here I'm going for P2 in class, overtaking Andrea Bertolini, who's a really handy driver, Ferrari factory driver, getting the move done after he got bogged down by traffic in front. And then I slot into second just behind the leader in our class, Jim Pla. And just thinking how I was going to get a move done on him. To overtake around Brands Hatch is really difficult, but it seemed that this year I was quite decent at getting moves done when the car in front of me was bogged down with other competitors. So I had I mean, sometimes I struggle with overtaking, but for some reason this year when there was traffic in front, I found a way to capitalize on it. I don't necessarily have a technique around it. It just seemed that my timing was good enough. That being said, this was also a race where I created a little bit of mayhem with that blue car in front, that blue Audi. And it would turn out that we'd meet up again many times during the season, myself and Frederic Laviche. But at least at this point in the race, everything was going smoothly. The day before, in race 1, Renat and myself, my teammate for the 2019 season, we won the race, and here I was trying to get us another W in race 2. I had done the start and basically started second in class, slipped down to third, and now I wanted to try regain the lead. So as we approached the end of the lap, the guys in front of me got bogged down yet again with some dicing up ahead, and this gave me an opportunity to fish for a move and sense a little bit of blood in the water. So I do a dummy here, which I've been perfecting in sim racing, and I managed to pull it off for the first time in real life. Just, you know, doing a classic little switchback or undercut, whatever you want to call it. Then, a week later, no time to rest, we headed to the Blancpain Endurance Series again at Silverstone. After that race 2 incident, we only managed to finish third in that sprint race, so I wanted to make up for my bad deeds in the sprint series by doing well in the endurance series. And we had to do a massive fight back here because in qualifying we suffered a technical issue which put us at the back of the grid. Renat did an amazing opening stint. Our middle stint driver Dennis Bulutov also did a pretty good job, and we climbed ourselves from P47 and basically last all the way up to I think 13th overall and 4th in class. We just missed out on the opportunity to get on the podium in the Silver Cup, which is what we were entered in the endurance series, but I did my best. I think when I got into the car we were P25 and at the end we were P13. So here was one of the laps where I was overtaking quite a few cars. It is a combination of back markers and cars for position. Really satisfying stint from myself, and I really enjoyed it. The prior year in the GT Open I also had a pretty cool stint here and used some of that inspiration or the moves that I was doing in that race and brought them to this race here. So diving around the inside, down the inside on this back marker, and in front of me is the Bentley from T. Parker, who I raced it with in 2016 for one race at Spa 24, and they had superior top speed compared to the Ferrari at this race, but we had pretty good high speed grip in mid-corner, and I seemed to be maximizing that element of our car, which allowed me to get close enough to pull off moves. However, here Team Parker gets bogged down by another back marker. He tries to move around the outside. I think it's through Beckett, and that allows me to get the move done as I cut back again, and I think just go to the left here to overtake another back marker. So I was hunting my way through the field, and really satisfying race. And unfortunately then we go to the Paul Ricard 6 hour, which is usually one of my favorite races. We were leading this race in Silver Cup and about P5 overall, but another pit stop issue cost us a huge amount of places, and our race just basically collapsed after that. Here I am in my stint after the race had collapsed, now having lost a lap to the leaders after being on the same lap. I'm right behind Miguel Molina in the factory entered Ferrari at night. Really awesome race, but unfortunately the result did not go our way. So then we switched to Misano in the Blancpain Sprint Series, and I'm leading at this point, and it's just after a safety car period. And just in front of me, this little mishap happens, and I tap the car in front after he got spun around, and by some miracle we had no damage. Well, we had damage, but it was only cosmetic, and the car kept running. But I was furious. I was absolutely furious, and this is probably one of my most aggressive fightbacks in any kind of race that I've done. I dropped from the lead in Pro-Am class down to P4 or P5, and managed in the end to fight my way back up to P2 in the class, doing just pretty much every move I could to try get back in the lead. So here I think I was fighting for, so here's the move for P2, and just in front of us is the car of Andrea Bertolini in the black Ferrari, who was leading the race. So after having that incident just after the safety car, somehow managed to fight my way back into victory contention, but I was running out of time and just couldn't quite get the move done. However, I'll just keep quiet for this next section, and you can enjoy the sounds of this race, or this dice. Okay, so in the end we managed to get the move done for P2 against Phil Keen. In this race he thought I was quite aggressive, but in the end he's actually a legend to race against. I have nothing but respect for that guy, absolute legend, and a good bloke off the track as well. So a lot of respect there, and we ended up having some pretty good battles throughout the season. After the Misano sprint race, we jumped to the 24 Hours of Portimao, back in the Creventic 24-hour series, and this was a race of just being as patient as possible. In the end we managed to finish P3 overall, so it was our first podium in the Creventic series, and just generally we were missing a lot of pace in our car and just had to out-survive or sort of outlast the other competitors. Here I am with the Mercedes that at the beginning of the stints they were super fast, but then they would come back towards us. So this is about 30 minutes into my second stint. He had already originally pulled away, and then I managed to get him back, and I do this move down the inside. Portimao is actually an awesome track to race at. This is my first race there, and there's lots of overtaking maneuvers around there that you can get moves done. From there, back to the GT World Challenge, which is the sprint series of the SRO events. Starting here in P9, I had a feeling that I could have started in the top 3, but got bogged down in qualifying. In race 1 we were leading, and then I lost a tyre after the pit stop due to a faulty wheel nut, which was nobody's fault. It was just one of those things. So we were leading that, and this is race 2, so I wanted to do the best job I could for the team, get a clean start, because I knew that when Rina got in the car, he would eventually, even if we were in P2, which we are here with P2 in class, he would comfortably outpace the driver in the blue Mercedes in front of us. So after the driver changes, once the bronze drivers got in, Renat was a far superior bronze driver and could get the job done. So in my case here, it was about staying as close as I could to the leader in Pro-Am. In this case it was Jim Pla, and then just sort of waiting for the drama to unfold in the second stint, which is exactly what happened. Within a few corners, Renat got the lead, and we managed to bring the W home from ZANDVOORT. So that was really satisfying, and at that point we were leading the championship. Then after the August break, we headed off to Nürburgring, and yeah, things were going well. This is race 1, and we're leading comfortably. It's the final lap, and everything seems to be going smoothly. What we had to do at this point was we had to win 2 of the final 4 races and finish on the podium in the other 2, which if we just circulated, we would have been able to do that because we had so much pace in this car. But unfortunately in racing, you can have the best drivers, best car, best tires, best team, and still have bad luck go your way. And unfortunately for us, after taking this victory in race 1, our championship quite literally exploded in our face from there on in. As I head down to turn 1 for race 2, another good qualifying. I think in this one we started P9. Go down the inside, there's Vivish on the outside. I'm slightly ahead, and then I get this massive impact. Spun around as I think MUGELLO sandwich Vivish hit me, and I got spun around. It didn't go much better in Budapest as this then happened. Again, fighting for the championship. We had to win this race, and boom. In this case, the blue Audi, unfortunately, we just tended to meet each other. The same thing happened at Brands Hatch, and now in Budapest, and we ended up losing Blancpain Sprint Championship. Sorry, the GT World Challenge Sprint Championship due to these 2 incidents at the end of the season. So really, really sad and upsetting way to end that championship. In the end, we finished 2nd in the GT World Challenge, which I think is still some kind of achievement. But in the opinion of Renat and myself, we probably should have won that championship if we just had a smoother run. But it goes to show that in racing, nothing is guaranteed, and you cannot take anything for granted. We had a bunch of really cool races there, and then we headed to the Italian GT, which is what you see here. And this was just a really fun race as we prepared for the Nations Cup. Going through the dust here, had an epic dice with Charles Vietz. We ended up winning this race and finished in the Pro-Am and finishing 3rd overall. We had the satisfaction of racing against Jacques Villeneuve and Giancarlo Fisichella in another Ferrari, and I also had the personal satisfaction of getting pole position the day before, pole position overall. So that was really cool, and that was our first race as a threesome, as you will. Myself, Renat, and Dennis Bulatov. So we're super excited and happy after that. In between all of that, I got a call out from Kessel Racing to enter, Kessel Racing and Iron Lynx to join them in the European Le Mans series. This is the first onboard video I've posted of me in a GTE car, which is basically like a GT3 with more torque and no ABS and more downforce and stickier tires. So the lap times in these GTE cars are a bit quicker, even though it looks like the Ferrari GT3. It's just different enough in a few key areas. So we went to Spa. Incredibly satisfying to drive these cars around Spa, and really an eye-opening experience for me as well. It was the first time I'd raced with a non-ABS car, but everything seemed to be going quite smoothly. We were really quick, and we could have maybe won this race. We were leading at one point, but then got a drive-through penalty when one of my teammates was unfortunately speeding in the pit lane. It was tiny error, but it cost us 45 seconds in the race and resulted in us finishing P4. All that being said, despite the result, I was actually really happy with the experience, and this was a breakthrough for me because for those of you who've been following me for a long time, you will know that my ultimate dream is to race in Le Mans, pretty much like any racing driver, but I obsess over Le Mans, and to finally drive a GTE car, which is the same spec that you would get in Le Mans, was just in many ways a dream come true, and sort of 1 inch closer to my ultimate target of getting myself onto the grid at Le Mans. After Spa, we headed to Barcelona for the final round of the Blancpain Endurance Series. We were out of contention in this championship early on after Paul Ricard, and then at Spa, where there is no onboard, we actually didn't finish that race. So for this final event, we really wanted to get onto the podium. Again, we had technical issues. We didn't have technical issues. We got a penalty at the beginning of the race for an incident that was frankly not our fault. So we had to fight away from last place. Renat again did an amazing job, then Dennis, and then I had to do the final bit, which was fighting from I think 25th to the Silver Cup podium. And here was the move that I had managed to do. 2 laps to go, going down the inside from 4th to 3rd to get onto the podium in the Silver Cup. Extremely satisfying, and P8 overall from last in the grid. I think as a team we did a phenomenal job. I didn't have much time to rest though, because Iron Lynx and Kessel Racing called me up again for the final round of the European Le Mans Series, this time in Portimao. And this was much more satisfying compared to Spa. It's an awesome track as well, very technical, and gave me a lot of, how can I explain, a lot of experience with managing the heavy braking with a non-ABS car, because at Spa you only have 2 heavy braking areas, whereas at Portimao you're using the heavy braking much more, and to modulate that, it takes some time to get used to, especially as I was originally used to the ABS cars. But again, adapted relatively quickly. I was quite satisfied with this. Both European Le Mans onboards are from free practice because we don't have onboard cameras for the race. That's part of the rules. But in the race itself, I had really epic dice. I was chasing down the overall leaders, and then we got caught out by a safety car issue, which put us a lap down. It was super unlucky, but in the end we still managed to finish P2 in class, which made my first silverware from the European Le Mans Series. This final section of the track is really awesome, and I really hope that my performances in this series one day get me a seat back in the championship in the future. However, for now my focus is still going to probably be, nothing is signed yet, on the SRO series and the Blanc, well, not the Blanc one, but the GT World Challenge stuff. 2 races to go, and this was for me the surprise of the year, was racing at KYALAMI in my home country, which was an unbelievable dream come true. Or it wasn't even a dream, it was something that was so far out of my expectations. I never expected to race a GT3 car in my home country, but more surprising than that was how awesome the KYALAMI racetrack was. Very high speed, lots of fast corners. Here's a corner called Sunset with bumps on the exit, so it had a lot of character. As you can see, there's no tarmac runoff here. There was forgiving in any way. If you went wide, you were in the gravel, and that was the right way. In the end, we finished 3rd in this race. There was a brief moment where we had a chance to win, but a 1 or 2 hour safety car period put paid to that, which meant that we had to settle for P3. It was just incredible racing here at night in the rain, with lightning and thunderstorms, which are famous in Johannesburg, around this awesome racetrack, which has it has gradients, it has slow corners, it has switchbacks, it has high-speed corners. Just overall incredibly satisfying to drive, and I'm reluctant to put it into my top 3 because I don't want to be biased, but it is probably one of my favorite tracks that I've been to, just because of the nature of the corners. So I wish that we could race here more often, but it's quite a bit far from home base. That being said, another podium with Wolkenspiegel Team Monschau and Rinaldi Racing, extremely satisfying, and a really nice way to end off the season with Rinaldi and WTM. Last but not least was my race in the Gulf, 12-hour, back with Kessel. This, you could say I was doing much more of a professional job, in the sense that this was an amateur-entered car, and the professional drive in the car was limited to 2 hours of driving in the 12-hour race. So this is another race which is split into 2, 6 hours part 1, 6 hours part 2, and as a professional you can only do 1 hour in each. That's just the rules of the amateur class. Obviously if I was in Pro-Am or Pro, I would have been basically had unlimited driving, but in this case I just had to do my job effectively. That's what we call it, just do your damn job, and bring the car home, and just make sure the customers are happy, and they all had a super fun time. I love driving around this track. It was a bit of a lonely stint. This is probably the only overtaking I did, which was with back markers, but our pace was pretty decent. And more than that, I had the privilege of sharing the garage with my racing hero Valentino Rossi. I got to see how he works. I got to race him on track. Got to even get a selfie with him, speak with him for a few minutes about driving, and it was frankly utterly surreal to be in the same box as such a legend, someone I'd looked up to my whole life. And my first racing helmet, I hunted him down at one of the MotoGP races in South Africa and got him to sign it. So to actually meet him in real life and race with him was quite special. But there you go, that was my season. I was quite satisfied with most of my driving. I think I made a huge step this year. 2 years ago I was ranked as an amateur, now I'm firmly in the professional ranks. This is my first year as a paid professional, which was incredibly satisfying, because my whole life I wanted to make my way to becoming a paid racing driver where I could make a living from it, and I, after 15 years or 16 years of trying, managed to pull it off. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this. For those of you who are Patreon members, you can watch this entire clip without commentary, so free of me talking. You can just listen to the sound of the engine and watch everything without the blabbering. So to all my Patreon members, just log into my Patreon page and you'll see this listed there shortly after I publish this on YouTube. To everybody else, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support this year, and I really cannot wait to bring you more onboards next year in the series that I'll be racing. Nothing is confirmed yet, but I'm working towards putting together a decent enough calendar with the teams that you see on these onboard videos. I'll obviously be posting more sim racing stuff and onboard tutorials, all those things. Hopefully we can bring more of it in the future. I appreciate all your comments, even the ones that are quite aggressive, and of course the positive ones. You guys are all legends. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for enjoying these onboard stories, and I will catch you around the next lap. Happy New Year and speak soon.